cheers and applauses are only acceptable after every speech. Catcalls are absolutely unacceptable. So please refrain from doing such, otherwise we will have to request the security staff to escort you out of the building. Thank you. So shall we begin? May I request the first affirmative speaker to take the stage and proceed with her speech.
Nigga! Abi kontra. Kontra dito dapat. Do we need to be enemies? Can we not have a friendly competition?
The implementation and reenactment of a law largely depends on the need of the status quo. The status quo further warrants if a certain issue needs to be addressed or not. It is in this premise why I, the necessary speaker, will base my arguments. Spectators comprised by the board of judges, moderator, debaters on both sides, students, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. The proposition today states that resolved that death penalty be reenacted in the Philippines. We on the affirmative side fight for a strong reenactment in the country. But before I present to you my arguments, I, the first speaker of the affirmative side, will set the parameter for both teams as we begin this highly academic debate. Let me, ladies and gentlemen. Death penalty, or in the words of Constitution, is the ultimate criminal penalty. What is death penalty? Let me articulate that under the Constitution. Death penalty is a type of capital punishment and serves as the maximum criminal penalty in which the accused is put to death as punishment for the crime he committed. The death sentence is a judicial decree in which the accused is sentenced to death. Based on the latest proposed bills both by the upper and lower Congress, to be filed by Senator Lacson, Senator Soto III, House Speaker Pantaleon, and Representative Ferdinand Castro, death penalty covers a wide range of heinous crimes from drug-related offenses to terrorism, murder, rape, and human trafficking. House Bill 1 by Representative Alvarez and Castro seeks to impose death penalty for human trafficking, illegal recruitment, parasite, infanticide, rape, qualified piracy, kidnapping, and illegal detention. This is a strong justification, ladies and gentlemen, why we firmly say that it is necessary because of these compelling grounds. First, because of the alarming upsurge of heinous crimes. Second, these upsurge of heinous crimes make it a prominent need in the status quo and drive of the government. Allow me now, ladies and gentlemen, to lay the bone of my contentions as I prove its necessity. First, it is necessary because of the alarming upsurge of heinous crimes. Heinous crimes is an action that is not just illegal, but is also considered hateful or reprehensible. In this, the PNP data cited that 75% of the most heinous crimes were drug-related, while 65% of inmates in prisons were accused or convicted of drug-related crimes. Further, from January to May 2016, the PNP recorded a staggering number of crime incidents, including 3,630 murder cases, 3,996 rape cases, and 9,971 robbery cases. What has been most alarming is the statistics released by the PNP's Directorate for Investigation and Detective Management, where it has documented 9,646 murder cases, 31,741 cases of robbery, and 10,298 rape cases in 2015. In simple ratio and proportion, an average incidence of murder every 54 minutes, robbery every 16 minutes, and rape every 51 minutes. These are not simple numbers, but serious ones to be immediately addressed. That is why the staunch proponent, Senator Lacson Soto, for filing bills in the Senate, emphasized these heinous crimes have resulted not only in the loss of human lives and wanton destruction of property, but also affected the nation's effort towards sustainable economic development and prosperity. This contention will now lead me to my last contention, and that is the absurd of these heinous crimes makes it a prominent need of the status quo and the prevailing drive of the government. Let me enlighten you in this, ladies and gentlemen. The prevalent existence of heinous crimes warrant the need to implement death penalty. In this reason, the both legislative and executive departments were very blatant illegal drugs and heinous crimes. This is the very reason why the prevailing drive of the government restored to fully align and strengthen his unshaken campaign on maintaining peace and order. It was further mentioned in an article published by CNN Philippines that there is a need to revive this capital punishment even if the church hinders its restoration. The vocal fight and approval for reimposition of death penalty makes it a very necessary in our status quo and our country. Death penalty, ladies and gentlemen, by no question is necessary because of the alarming upsurge of heinous crimes, and lastly, the upsurge of these heinous crimes make it a prominent need of the status quo and prevailing drive of the government. Thank you.
Take the stage and may start asking his questions. Before you proceed, Mr. Interpolator, let us wait for the audience to be ready, and I shall cue when you can start. You may now proceed.
Good afternoon, young lady. Okay, you mentioned that there is a need for the implementation or reenactment of this act because of the upsurge of heinous crimes. Is that it?
Indeed.
Okay, so upon the passage of this act, if ever, will this deter crime? Is that what you mean?
Please repeat your question.
Based on what you said, this is needed because there is an upsurge or increase in heinous crimes. Now, upon the passage of this act, are you trying to say that this would deter crime or at least minimize, or in other words?
Indeed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, are you aware that death penalty was imposed in our country during the terms of President Ramos and President Estrada?
Of course, I am very much aware.
Are you aware that the reasons that you've stated are the same reasons that they did?
I am aware.
You are aware of that. And are you aware that it did not deter the crime rate in our land?
It did not deter the crime rate of our land because it lacks persistency, consistency, and determined implementation.
Okay, so it did not deter. You agree with me?
Excuse me?
It did not deter during their time.
During their time.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Would you agree with me that there is no such thing as a perfect criminal justice system?
Yes, I agree.
You agree with me, very good. So, would you agree with me that judges do commit errors as human as they are?
No, I do not agree.
So, judges do not commit mistakes?
Indeed.
They do not commit, yet you agree that there is no perfect justice system. Question. Can this death penalty of yours bring back the life of an innocent person who gets killed erroneously because of the errors of the judicial system?
It does not bring back the lives of the person, but it gives them justice.
So justice is killing.
Justice is killing if it is justified in accordance to the law.
According to... You are now telling me that by killing a criminal who is innocent in the very first place is justice.
What did you say?
My question was, can death penalty bring back the life of an innocent person who gets killed erroneously because of the imperfect
As
justice
what I
system?
said, it cannot bring back their life, but it gives justice.
So by killing an innocent person, that gives the victim justice?
The victim, what did you say? By killing an innocent person, that gives a victim justice?
Yes, that's what I meant. I was asking you if by killing this innocent person, that would give justice, and that's what you keep on insisting.
I did not say that.
Oh, yes, you did. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you.
Oh yes, you did.
What's up?
Oh yes, you did.
Oh, yes, I did.
Yeah,
We did.
So don't.
Like, nag-expect naman na sila stock. Nag-stock.
Exact.
Nag-expect na they can be, na sila makita na something among akitan. Na statistics.
Sila or
Sila.
ikaw din ako?
Ha?
Ikaw nag-visit?
Diba naman? Astro.
Is everyone ready? Audience, please do not delay the debate. Time is very important. If you're not interested, then you might as well step out of the venue and find somewhere else to talk. Thank you. You may now proceed.
Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. to all in attendance. Death penalty in the Philippines was first imposed during the Spanish period and followed during the American period. During the Marcos regime, deterrence became the justification of death penalty, which was imposed to control rebellion and social conflict. While during Corazon Aquino years, the holistic approach was done through the abolition of death penalty under the 1987 Constitution. But due to increase of crimes during the Fidel Ramos administration, the death penalty was reimposed by virtue of Republic Act 7659. But throughout the presidency of Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, the death penalty was abolished. Why was it abolished? Because death penalty is not necessary, not beneficial, and not practicable. As the very first negative speaker in today's event, allow me to cite the reasons why the reenactment of Republic Act 7659, also known as the Death Penalty Act, is not necessary. 1. It does not deter crime. 2. Judicial error is of high concern. And 3. Its irrevocable nature and its effects. Death penalty cannot be used to deter crime. Scientific studies and researchers have consistently failed to provide proof that executions have a greater deterrence effect than life imprisonment, and such proof is unlikely to be forthcoming. After the death penalty came into effect in January 1994, crime levels did not decline significantly. Rather, the incidence of rape had reported to have risen by 40% in 1994 and by 44% in 1995, while kidnappings and bank robberies continued at a high level. In 1999, President Joseph Estrada carried out capital punishment on 7 convicts, but instead of abating criminality, it even increased by 15.3% compared to that of the previous year. Moreover, when the opponents feel fear of death will prevent one from committing a heinous crime, example murder, is not true, because most crimes are done in the heat of passion when a person cannot think rationally. Thus, how can someone even have time to think of fear when he is emotionally and mentally distracted? Secondly, the death penalty also carries a manifest risk of miscarriages of justice. No criminal justice system in the world is immune from errors, and that of the Philippines is no exception. A single error that culminates irrevocably in the execution of an innocent person would represent a shocking failure in our justice system, a juridical murder. In the year 2004, the Supreme Court of our country revealed that on the reviews on the 907 death penalty cases, 71.77% of which had judicial errors. This was published by the Supreme Court in its decision on People of the Philippines versus Efren Mateo Y. Garcia. During a commission's debates, one of the commissioners, Bishop Teodoro Bacani, drew attention to the risk of judicial errors and the prolonged suffering the death penalty imposed on the prisoner and his family. Recalling a former parishioner who had been erroneously sentenced to death for rape before being acquitted by the Supreme Court, the bishop said, "Just the thought that he was going to be electrocuted, that he was among the dumb, so to speak, was such a terrible torment, not only for him but to his family. It was probably like dying 2 times. And when you consider his family, the death that they die, dying many times for something which proved in the end to be wrong." Now to my third point, its irrevocability in nature and its effects. Capital punishment is wrong because it is irremediable. There is no remedy for the act of execution. Not all punishments are beyond remedy. If someone is fined by court as a penalty for alleged wrongdoing, his money can be restored to him if it is subsequently discovered that he is innocent. If a person's innocence is established after he has spent several years in prison, restitution is not possible. There is no way in which the society can give back to someone wrongfully condemned those lost years of his life or undo the suffering he has lived through. Still, some compensation is possible. Society can give its innocent victim a considerable sum of money to repay him, in part at least, for what he has suffered at its hand. It would be naively sentimental to pretend that any compensation would adequately balance the harm inflicted upon the person unjustly condemned to imprisonment, but some partial and imperfect remedy is available for any such miscarriage of justice. But in the case of capital punishment, no remedy of any kind is available to make up against the slightest degree for the incalculable evil done by taking life of an innocent human being. Neither restitution nor compensation is possible, for there is no way in which society can give a person's life back to him, and no way to do good to someone who is dead and gone. Since the possibility of error can never be eradicated from any human judicial procedure, irremediable penalties are always wrong. The administration of justice in this country needs a stronger foundation, not in terms of restoration of death penalty, but in the strict implementation of penal laws and the equitable administration of justice in accordance with international human rights laws. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May we request the interpreter?
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker.
Good afternoon.
Just a clarificatory question. You are the necessity, correct?
Yes,
No.
the non-necessity.
Okay. The necessity or non-necessity revolves in the status quo if it is necessary or not, correct?
Yes.
Are you aware, Mr. Speaker, that based on the PNP data for 2015 and 2016, there is an alarming upsurge of heinous crimes in today's status quo?
I would like to clarify those crimes, if those only involve heinous or all the crimes in the Philippines. Just a clarification. Is it heinous or all the crimes?
My question. Are you aware, Mr. Speaker, that based on the PNP data for 2015 and 2016, there is an alarming upsurge of heinous crimes in today's status quo?
And I would repeat, I would like to clarify, Mr. Moderator, if referring to the crimes that she is mentioning.
Okay, Mr. Moderator, can I give the data to Mr. Speaker?
Sorry, okay. So your question specifically mentioned heinous crimes.
Heinous crimes alone?
So let us assume that those are heinous crimes.
Okay,
because she mentioned heinous crimes.
Okay, yes. Miss Interpreter.
Okay, if you are aware, can you please enlighten the audience of the data I am asking?
The data, the increase in number will always be there. The reason for that is because if population is increasing at all times. That's why you can't compare numbers of today in the past. So if you say that there's an upsurge, there will always be an upsurge.
Okay, thank you for your question. Are you further aware of the 3 grounds for the reimposition of death penalty in the country as ruled by the Supreme Court and mandated by the Constitution?
Pardon me, please repeat the question.
Are you aware of the 3 grounds for the reimposition of death penalty in the country as ruled by the Supreme Court as mandated by the Constitution?
3 grounds for reimposition?
Yes,
No,
reimplementing or
please
reimposition.
Please enlighten me those 3 grounds.
Okay, Mr. Moderator, I will enlighten him. The 3 grounds of reimplementing death penalty is, first, the Congress will file a bill. Second, compelling reasons. And third, it's because of the heinous crimes, upsurge of heinous crimes.
Okay.
Okay. Since you are already aware, Mr. Speaker, would you agree with me that there is an alarming upsurge of heinous crimes, and this is one of the 3 grounds of reimposition of death penalty?
No.
Okay, no. I stated a while ago, Mr. Speaker, that heinous crimes is one of the 3 grounds of reimplementing of the death penalty, and why are you saying no?
Yes, because it's just one of the 3 grounds. The 3 grounds has not yet been met.
Yes, and that is what I'm asking, one of the 3 grounds.
And what are you trying to say now? I just answered your question. You asked me yes or no. I said no.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. You mentioned that it is not necessary because there are existing laws and are effective, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so you further believe that these existing laws are effective?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Mr. Speaker, in the context of effectivity of these existing laws, what is the... Okay, thank you. That's my question.
Thank you very much. You know, now,
We want this before allow
Mic test. Society justly ordered when each person receive what is due to him. That is why an argument of death penalty, there are 2 lives to think about. However, too much emphasis is placed on the convicted murderer, the one being executed, and the victim is all forgotten. Now let me be fair as I begin my contentions. Truly commendable board of judges, fair moderator, to bears on the negative side, highly intellectual audience gathered here today. Good afternoon. Resolved that death penalty be reenacted in the Philippines. You have heard our first speaker, and it holds true that it should be reenacted because of these reasons under the premise of the beneficiality. First, it is one of the firms in deterring heinous crimes. Second, it is a form of retributive justice. And lastly, it serves the component for government programs in solving heinous crimes and felonious acts. Ladies and gentlemen, people have misunderstood the benefits of death penalty. And so, as the beneficiality speaker, allow me to educate the spectator today about its benefit as I expound further the structure of my arguments. Let me begin. It is beneficial because it is one of the firms in deterring crimes. Our necessity speaker mentions statistics disclosing how heinous crimes dominated our societal ills today. Let me repeat that in an exclusive period from January to May 2016, an alarming statistics of 3,615 murder cases, 3,996 rape cases, and 9,971 robbery cases. These heinous crimes should be equally punished anchored on the principle of gravity and severity of the crime. This has become the rationale of proposed House Bill 01, reinvigorate the war against criminality by reviving a proven deterrent coupled by its consistent, persistent, and a determined implementation. And this need is as compelling as any. Deterrence can be best achieved in the words of criminal justice, where there is certainty of arrest and persecution. Opponents of the death penalty argue that it's not deterrent, but let me divulge the truth, ladies and gentlemen. During the regional press conference of the Asian Interparliamentary Organization, it is urged that all ASEAN member states to impose the death penalty for drug trafficking. At a recent meeting in Kuala Lumpur, delegates from 5 member states, including Philippines, agreed that trafficking in over 15 grams of heroin or morphine should be made a capital offense. In this meeting, it was discussed that in the case of Philippines, when death penalty was abolished, an average of 2 people is killed daily, and in Manila alone, the criminality rate rose by more than 100%. It is not just about discouraging crime, and my second contention will reason my second reasoning. Second, it is a form of retributive justice. Those crimes qualified as heinous crimes covered by death penalty is just retributive justice. Let me expound this claim under the principle of retributive justice. Retributive justice is anchored in the contention that, and I quote, it is the wrongness of the criminal act that justifies the imposition of punishment on the offender. Guilt deserves punishment for the sake of justice, end quote. Retributive justice has 3 elements and criteria. First, what's wrong should be punished. Definitely, heinous crimes. Second, how much wrong should be punished. The answer is based on the gravity and severity of the crime. And lastly, how then punish be justified. Ladies and gentlemen, due process of the law of death penalty is the answer. It is summarized in the principle of criminal law called lex talionis. You get what you deserve. This retributive justice is the core penalty that the Congress emphasizes the President wants. Lastly, it serves as a component for government programs in solving heinous crimes in Felonious Act. President Duterte's priority is to achieve a well-established peace and order. The alarming increase for heinous crimes warrants the reenactment of death penalty. The lower Congress, headed by House Speaker Antonio Alvarez, and the upper Congress, led by Senator President Aquilino Poco Pimentel III, aired their strong support that death penalty will serve as a component for government programs in solving heinous crime. Death penalty, as in the words of our President, and I quote, bring back death penalty, especially for drug traffickers who become bestial state beings, end of quote. Further, PNP Chef Ronald Bato de la Rosa mentioned in an interview with Karen Davila on ANC's Head Start on June 9, 2016, that what we lack is a criminal law that would met out these insistent heinous crimes, most especially in solving drug trafficking. He aired that the reinstatement of death penalty is now a program that they are studying for its careful and effective implementation. Ladies and gentlemen, with all these compelling contentions that I have presented, I further reiterate that the reenactment of death penalty in the Philippines is beneficial because it is a form of deterrent of heinous crime, a form of retributive justice, and a component of government programs in solving heinous crimes. It is time to correct the misconceptions of death penalty. I now close my arguments. Thank you.
We know we're gonna lose.
Next stop.
We know we're gonna lose. So why do you have to make
Good afternoon, sir.
You have said that
Why do you have to make
President
worse for us?
Duterte's campaign is more on
Show
drugs,
us.
and that's the reason why we should implement that penalty.
Pardon me, Speaker, please amplify your voice.
You have said that President Duterte's campaign against drug is the reason why we should also implement that penalty.
Yes, Miss Speaker, but I didn't use that as the main contention in my speech.
Okay, wait a second. So, are you aware of what type of death penalty President Duterte wants?
Yes, indeed, Miss Speaker, I'm aware. Mr. Speaker, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Is this type of penalty allowed in Article 3, Section 19 in our Constitution?
Yes.
Excuse me, is brutality part in our Constitution?
No, it's not, Mr.
Okay,
Speaker.
so you have just clarified your previous wrong answer that it is not in our Constitution.
No, it is not, Mr. Speaker.
Second, what type are you really trying? Lethal injection?
According to President Duterte, he wants had.
No.
But in our
No,
Constitution,
you're
there is
okay.
little. Please,
I'm not
let me
talking-
answer, Mr.
Mr. Speaker.
Sorry,
Mr.
You're
Moderator,
asking me
I would
questions, I will
like to
answer
clarify
your
my question.
apologies to interrupt both of you. What's your question? And be specific with it.
You proposing death penalty, what type of penalty are you trying to
Are you
propose?
asking for a personal
Her.
proposal?
No, what type of penalty they are trying to propose? What type of death
Okay,
penalty?
sorry, sir. That's why I'm asking you. Are you specifically asking for her personal proposal of a death penalty?
Them as a team.
Them as a team.
Okay.
Your answer?
According to House Bill 01, it is lethal injection that they
Okay,
propose.
I'm satisfied with your answer. Lethal injection. So will the convict feel death?
Please amplify your voice, Mr. Speaker.
Will the convict feel death?
Pardon?
Will the convict of lethal injection feel death?
Of course, yes, Mr.
Okay.
Speaker. If it is
They will
justified
feel
by
death.
the
Wait a
law.
sec, wait a sec. Let me ask you again. Is brutal punishment allowed in our constitution?
It is not, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, so lethal injection is clearly not allowed. You just
No,
said
Mr.
that
Speaker,
they will
according to
Yeah,
House
sorry,
Bill 01,
okay.
that's what they propose. That
Sorry.
lethal injection is not what they want as a...
Excuse me. Just to
I'm so
interrupt.
sorry, Mr. Moderator.
Okay. Just to clarify, everyone, as the interpolator, please ask questions. You answer questions. Please do not give a conclusion to her answers. It is for the judges to consider the conclusions. Okay. You may proceed with your next question.
Well, I just find it hard to accept lies, Mr. Moderator. Is this for retribution? Death
Please,
penalty is for retribution.
yes.
You just said that they get what they deserve, right?
No, Mr. Speaker, if you are aware, there is due process
Okay,
of the
wait.
law
No,
before the offender
wait a sec,
will
wait a sec.
penalize a death
Wait a sec.
penalty.
What I'm
Please
talking
let me
about-
answer your question, Mr. Speaker.
No,
I'm not yet finished answering your question.
okay, my
Okay.
question was, did you say that they get what they deserve?
Because
Yes.
there is due process of the law
No, that
before
is
the
yes or
offender
no.
will
Did you say
penalize
that?
Sorry,
a penalty.
okay, sorry. Do you want your question to be close-ended too?
Yes or no? Did she say that?
Yes.
Okay, you said that. This is in line of the Code of Hammurabi, right?
Wait, Mr. Speaker, let me answer your question. You asked me a while ago that if the offender will get what he deserves a penalty. So I answer, there's a due process of the law, ladies and gentlemen. Before the offender will receive this...
Yes, that's just exactly what I need. I don't need further explanations. This is in line with the Code of Hammurabi, right?
Yes, thank you very much. You may now take your seats. Just to give a clarification to everyone and to the audience, especially to our debaters, if you are an interpolator, you are only supposed to ask questions, and then as the speaker, you're supposed to answer the questions. All the conditions and conclusions and the judgment, whether the answers are false or not, will rely on the judges, because the judges are very much aware of the topic as well.
Sorry.
So you may now proceed.
Listen to those who believe in chance, to those who believe that man can reform. Listen to us. Competent judges, coaches, and affirmative side. A wondrous day, isn't it? The opposite side says that those who commit grave crimes must be punished, not only as payment for the crime committed, but to instigate fear that the state can kill. Believers of Hammurabi supports such motion of reciprocity. But isn't that an act of a man living in 17th century? And we are now at the civilized time where we are committed to ensure the primacy of all human rights to their protection and promotion on the basis of equality and non-discrimination, in particular for those who are marginalized and vulnerable. Their belief works in a simple hypothesis of if and then. If the state kills those who commit crimes of high extent, then people are afraid to commit those crimes. Good in theory, but not in facts. No statistical evidence in the Philippines show that such theory is effective. Listen to the contentions why death penalty is definitely not beneficial. First, proven by time that there is an economic discrimination in death penalty. Death penalty cases are not ordinary cases. Richard C. Dieter, Director of Death Penalty Information System in collaboration with Duke University, show that death penalty cases leave more pre trial time, more experts be hired, 2 trials instead of 1, 3 to 5 times longer trial period than typical, and series of appeals wherein suspect is held at maximum security. How can a man sentenced to death in February 1997, Abe Valdez de la Cruz, 25-year-old farmer with bills to pay and mouth to feed, afford a good lawyer during the long process of trial? He did not even understand the verdict, which was announced in English. He belongs to the 47% of prisoners in the death row surveyed in 1997 that educated are up to elementary level only. 90% of those who are in death row belongs to the lower class by American Civil Liberties Union. These are the people who cannot afford a good representation and thus have higher probability of losing their plea. Second, we are spending more on prisoners under litigation than those convicted due to poor criminal justice system. What others believe that taxpayers are spending much money on criminals is definitely wrong. We are spending more on those presumed innocent. BGMP, responsible for those presumed innocent, receives 3.6 billion more than Bureau of Corrections, responsible over convicted inmates under General Appropriations Act of 2011. We will be spending more if we pass death penalty, for the reason that death penalty cases takes longer time. We will be spending more on yet to be proven criminals and yet to be proven to be punishable to death. In California, they spend $170 million more in death penalty had it been life sentence without parole. Such money could have been spent on rehabilitating the prisoners instead of studying where the state deserves the power to terminate their lives. Third, death is proven to be ineffective to deter crimes, but President Duterte's robust campaign of strictly implementing our laws, law enforcement is lucidly brighter. PNP Chief Ronald De La Rosa presented in Senate the data showing that in the first month of the current administration, there had been a 31% down in crime rates and 49% on rapes. Not only such data and evidence of deterrence, but also the recent use of drug pushers and users surrendering to our policemen. Let me be clear, we don't have death penalty today, but the sign of change is evident. Fourth, last contention, criminals they may be, but they can change. First, CPDRC consultant on jail matters Marco Toral, Cebu dancing inmates would earn 100,000 pesos a year for their performances. Said money can be utilized for emergency cases and other needs. Third, in Makati, 20 inmates raised revenue of 60,000 pesos by selling candles on All Souls Day. Such money was sent to their families. Yes, they are convicts, but it doesn't mean that they will forever be. Manual reform, given a proper rehabilitation, and though they are previously enemies of the state, they can be allies, contributors, not only economically, but morally. With all my contentions laid down, I rest my case. Good day.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker.
Good afternoon, Mr. Blake.
Okay, my question is, a lot of adversary impose death penalty because it penalizes innocent man. Do you go with this?
Yes.
Are you aware, Mr. Speaker, that before an offender will be penalized with a penalty, it will undergo due process of law and thorough process should be done?
Is it answerable by yes or no?
Yes?
Oh, yes.
If yes, how can you say, Mr. Speaker, that an innocent man will be penalized of death penalty if you are aware the due process of the law?
Miss Interpolator, had you listened to our first speakers, it is clear that...
Please answer,
It is
Mr.
clear, I
Speaker.
am answering your
Answerable
question.
by yes or no?
No, it is
Excuse
not.
me, Mr. Moderator, my question is answerable by yes or no?
Okay, I will let you answer with yes or no only at the moment. But then questions like that should be quantified why.
Yes.
Should... Audience, please. Questions such as that should be quantified why should you want a yes or no answer only.
No, yes or no answer only, Mr. Speaker.
I mean, you should quantify it since you demand it.
I will let him quantify his yes or
No,
no.
what I meant is that the next time you will demand to be answered by a yes or no only question, you should be able to justify why do you demand a yes or no answer only.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Moderator.
So now at this time, please answer the question yes or no.
Please, I lost track. What was your question?
I was asking to you a while ago, are you aware, Mr. Speaker, that before an offender will be penalized by a penalty, it will undergo due process of law, and then you said yes. If yes, how can you say, Mr. Speaker, that an innocent man will be penalized of death penalty if you are aware that due process of the law?
Yes.
Mr. Moderator, can I clarify that she asked me, how can I say? So I had to explain my answer.
No,
Yes.
no. Okay, let me clarify the question. So, first she asked, are you aware that there is due process before a suspect be convicted guilty by
Yes.
the courts? And you answered yes. Okay. And what was your follow-up question?
So if he is aware, how can he say that an innocent man will be penalized of death penalty if he is aware of the due process of the law?
May I
Okay,
now
so that is
explain?
not answerable by yes or no.
Yes.
It has to be quantified. So please quantify your answer.
If you had listened to our first speakers, Miss Interpolator, it was clear that our Supreme Court itself released a report that they have committed 71.77% juridical errors that have resulted to death of people. And
No,
this means, wait, I'm not yet...
Excuse me, Mr.
I'm not yet done. And this means that our juridical system is not perfect. It commits mistake even though we go through the due process of law. Mistake is still there. And
Okay, I'm now satisfied with your answer, so let me proceed to my next question. So, Mr. Speaker, you have opposed to my argument a while ago that death penalty is not a deterrence for heinous crime, correct?
yes,
Okay. May I ask what is your basis on this?
I have said it in my speech very clear that there are no statistical evidence that supports such claim.
Okay,
And
thank you.
that is also the reason. And that is also the reason in the first place why they abolished death penalty.
Continue your
Okay,
next
I am now
question.
satisfied. Are you aware, Mr. Speaker, that during the imposition of death penalty, before there were three lacking elements of it? Would you like me to enumerate those for you to be enlightened?
Were those mentioned by our first speakers?
No, it's not mentioned, but I will enumerate those for you to be enlightened, for you to answer my next question.
No, you don't have to enlighten me, Miss.
Can I, Mr. Moderator?
Well, it doesn't need enlightenment. You go with your next question.
Okay. Are you aware how much cost spent the government to the imprisoner?
Wait a second. Is this in the Philippines?
Yes, of course, in the Philippines, Mr.
Okay,
Speaker.
yes.
He's aware. So please proceed with your next
So
question.
can you give me how much costs allocated for the imprisoner every year, Mr.
I
Speaker?
also have stated it clear in my speech. I
No,
hope
you
have
did not
listened
state
to
it in
me.
your speech, Mr.
Sorry.
Speaker.
The question is, are you aware? And you answered yes. So please state how much is it that you believe the cost.
Okay, our government, under the General Appropriations Act of 2011, is spending 3.5 million.
No, it does not.
Thank you very much. Your time is ended. You may now take your seats. You may now proceed.
5 days.
5 days, ayaw tulog.
Hey, we did that also. Don't we? And I still failed.
Ha? Kami video, wala na.
The Constitution is designed to protect against violations committed by the government, an individual, or groups of individuals. Its basis is the social importance according to the belief that every human being has an intrinsic dignity and worth which must be respected and safeguarded. It is under this philosophy where our practicability revolves. Distinguished Board of Judges, fair moderator, equally competent opponents in the negative side, teammates, and to our sovereign Filipino people today, good afternoon. Resolved that death penalty be reenacted in the Philippines. I, the third speaker of the affirmative side, stand firm that indeed the reenactment of death penalty is practicable because of the following reasons. First, it is within the provision of the 1987 Philippine Constitution. Second, there are proposed bills regarding death penalty. And lastly, the Congress is vested by the Constitution to reimpose death penalty. Allow me to expound the contentions. First, it is within the provision of the
1987 Philippine Constitution. Article 3, Section 1 of the 1987 Philippine Constitution states that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall any person be denied the equal protection of the laws. Any deprivation of life, liberty, or property by the state is due process if it is done firstly under the authority of a law that is valid or of the Constitution itself, and secondly after compliance with fair and reasonable methods of procedure prescribed by law. In other words, no person shall be deprived of his life, liberty, or property for arbitrary reasons or on flimsy grounds. Furthermore, Section 14, Paragraph A of the same article states that no person shall be held to answer for a criminal offense without due process of law. Due process of law in this context pertains more to the procedural aspect, which requires that first, the accused must be tried before a court having jurisdiction, given fair and impartial trial, and allowed to use all legal means and opportunity to defend himself. And secondly, the judgment awarded against him must be within the authority of a valid law. The Constitution, ladies and gentlemen, does not prohibit the reenactment of death penalty. It is clear that we on the affirmative side support the reenactment of death penalty, given that the accused must undergo both procedural and substantive due process. Equitas non contra venit legem, equity never contradicts the law. It means that whatever proposition aims to achieve fairness and impartiality must be pursued, provided that it does not go against the law. And clearly, death penalty is under the provision of the Constitution, because, ladies and gentlemen, we on the affirmative side will clarify that death penalty is not the automatic punishment for heinous crimes, but rather it becomes the maximum penalty possible. Secondly, there are proposed bills regarding death penalty. House Bill 01, authored by House Speaker Pantaleon Alvarez and Capiz Representative Ferdinand Castro, aims to reenact death penalty for heinous crimes involving illegal drugs, kidnapping, and aggravated rape. Also, Senators Panfilo Lacson and Vicente Soto III are proposing Senate bills, both covering a wide range of heinous crimes, from drug-related offenses to terrorism, murder, rape, and human trafficking to be punishable by death. Moreover, death penalty is in line with the 10-point agenda of President Rodrigo Duterte, which will lead to my third and final contention. Lastly, the Congress is vested by the Constitution to reenact death penalty. In the ruling of the Supreme Court on June 25, 1996, People of the Philippines versus Leo Echegaray E. Pilo, the Supreme Court ruled that nothing is more defining of the true content of Article 3, Section 19, Paragraph A of the 1987 Constitution than the form in which the legislature took the initiative in reimposing the death penalty. The Senate never doubted its power as vested in it by the Constitution to enact legislation reimposing the death penalty for compelling reasons involving heinous crimes. Pursuant to this constitutional mandate, the reimposition of death penalty is subject to three conditions. First, Congress should so provide such imposition of the death penalty. Second, there are compelling reasons. And lastly, these involve heinous crimes. Ladies and gentlemen, by no doubt, these three conditions are met to reinstate death penalty. Ladies and gentlemen, I further recapitulate the reinstatement of death penalty in the Philippines is practicable because first, it is within the provision of the 1987 Philippine Constitution. Second, there are proposed bills regarding death penalty. And thirdly, the Congress is vested by the Constitution to reimpose death penalty. Ladies and gentlemen, our opponents on the negative side may argue that our arguments are harsh and inhumane, but dura lex sed lex, the law is hard, but it is the law. With that, we on the affirmative side are proud to propose. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, Ms. Speaker.
Good afternoon.
How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling good.
Okay, let's begin. Are you familiar with the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights?
Yes, I'm very much aware.
Are you also aware of the second optional protocol?
Pardon, Ms. Interpolator?
Are you aware of the second optional protocol?
No, would you please enlighten me?
Okay. Second optional protocol prohibits the imposition of death penalty under international treaties and international law. Now, next question. Are you aware that the Philippines is a signatory to the second optional protocol to the ICCPR, whereby committed not to reimpose death penalty?
Yes, but I'm also very
Ms.
much aware.
Speaker, I'm only asking but with yes or no.
Okay, proceed with your next question.
Okay, good. Are you made aware that by restoring death penalty, you will be violating the international law?
No. I believe, Ms. Interpolator, that won't be violating the law if ever President Rodrigo Duterte would veto because...
Ms. Speaker, let me proceed with my next question. Mr. Rodrigo Duterte is not involved in this question. Okay. How is it not violating the international law when in fact the Philippines has ratified its agreement with the international law to not reimpose and abolish death penalty?
Ms. Speaker, you have made mention about that international treaty, but are you also aware that only Philippines...
Ms. Speaker, you're not allowed to ask me questions. You're only allowed to answer my question. You don't need to make me aware.
Allow me to answer then.
Yes, please do answer now, Ms. Speaker.
According to the international treaty, there are exemptions in that certain treaty.
Okay, there's exemption. But are you aware that the Philippines is not included with that exemption?
Pardon, Ms. Interpolator?
Are you aware that the Philippines is not included in that exemption?
No.
Okay, clearly you are, sorry for the lack of better word, ignorant of it. Next question. Are you made aware that the consequences of our country would be facing if you are breaching the international law?
I'm sorry, Ms. Speaker, but the Constitution provided the Congress the power to reimpose the death penalty.
Yes, you mentioned that. But is there any bill at the present in the Congress to reimpose death penalty?
House Bill 01 authored by...
No, Ms. Speaker, let me correct you. I'm asking, is there a
Ms.
bill?
Speaker, you have stated a while
by
ago you're
the
only
Congress?
allowed to ask questions
Sorry,
and not to
excuse
impose
me.
your own ideas.
Excuse me, she is asking. Proceed with your question.
Is there a particular bill by the Congress, not for the Congress, as of the moment, that would like to pass the reimposition of death penalty?
Yes.
And what particular bill? And please state when it was approved, the exact date. Thank you so much. If there is.
Mr. Speaker, if you were just aware that the 17th Congress...
I don't need you to make me
Thank
aware,
you very
Ms.
much.
Speaker.
Okay, you may now take your seats. Audience, shall we proceed? Do you want us to proceed? Thank you. You may proceed.
An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. A splendid afternoon to each and one of us. In the 1987, the Philippines set a historic precedent by becoming the first Asian country in modern times to establish and abolish the death penalty for all crimes. The move formed part of a determined effort to restore respect for human rights. The former government of the late President Corazon Aquino also promulgated a constitution with a Bill of Rights, established an independent commission on human rights, and acceded to the major international human rights treaties, all of which clearly withstand the reenactment of death penalty. As a third speaker of the negative side, I would like to lay my contentions that will serve as an evidence as to why the reenactment of death penalty is not practicable. First contention, death penalty violates the international laws and treaties. The country is a part of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, or the ICCPR. International treaty, among other things, prescribes that the states respects and observes fundamental freedoms. These include freedom of expression, religion, freedom from cruel, inhumane, or degrading punishment. Commission on Human Rights Chairperson Chito Gacson told CNN Philippines that the death penalty is categorized as one in such cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment. The Philippines has also ratified the ICCPR's second optional protocol, which urges the states to abolish the death penalty and explicitly forbids the Philippines and other states that have ratified it from conducting executions within their respective jurisdictions. If a state chooses to ratify the optional protocols, it may not disregard their obligations under the protocol. Both the ICCPR and the optional protocols are considered international law, and thus parties to such agreements are bound to comply with them in good faith. Since the Philippines has ratified the second optional protocol to the ICCPR, it is violating the international law by restoring the death penalty, clearly making it impracticable. Second contention, it fractures human rights. The aforesaid provision is in accordance with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, or the ICCPR, which the Philippines had ratified, guarantees that every human being has the inherent right to life.
This right shall be protected by law, and no one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his life. The Commission on Human Rights has vehemently objected the reposition of death penalty law in the Philippines on the ground that it offends the dignity of human person and human rights. Article 2, Section 11 of 1987 Constitution, that the state values the dignity of every human person and guarantees full respect for human rights. Capital punishment is a form of cruelty and inhumanity unworthy of a society that claims to be humane. Since the death penalty is irrevocable and judicial error is always possible, the penalty appears as a pardonable crime committed by the state on its citizens. Third contention, it will be a strenuous job for the Supreme Court. Article 8, Section 1, the judicial power shall be vested in one Supreme Court. Unlike other judicial systems, such as the United States, where there are a number of appeal avenues, including courts at the local, state, and the federal levels, in the Philippines, all death penalty cases have only one level of judicial appeal and go directly to the Supreme Court. The burden borne by the Supreme Court include both capital and non-capital cases are already onerous. There is a concern that with death penalty cases waiting for review, the Supreme Court may at times be able to define same level of rigorous attention to each and every case. Caseload pressures mean that each individual justice is unlikely to have the time to study all the motions and pleadings that have the every case. When every justice seeking to apply death penalty should be an exclusion because the attention to each case needs an irrevocable nature of the death penalty, and there remains concern that if a single judge fails to protect a potential flaw in the case, it will never be revealed and explored by the wider court. Last contention, reviving death penalty risks OFWs on death row. Buhay Representative Lito Atienza said in a statement that reviving capital punishment in the Philippines would affect the country's appeal for clemency by the OFWs who are facing execution abroad, and that should Congress reinstate the cruel and humane punishment, it would be extremely problematic for us to plead with other governments for compassion if we ourselves are killing our own convicts, if we ourselves do not respect the value of human life. Right now, without the death penalty for a long time already, the Philippine government has great moral authority to invoke humanitarian grounds and implore foreign governments for them to show mercy to Filipino citizens who are about to be put to death. It is strange that a nation would denounce the practice of murder by committing the very same act. It's clearly hypocritical. Human rights and security should not be exclusive. It should be inclusive. For the loss of one should not be the loss of the other, because by doing so, we're essentially championing the right to life by taking it from others. What has happened in our society right now is that there has been criminality and there's a demand to address that. So people often think that the only way to address it is to reduce human right. It is no more than a lazy and impractical answer which hinders the search for effective means of curbing crime for rational system of prevention. Having said all of these contentions, the reenactment of death penalty remains undeniably impractical and impracticable. We have not repented and turned from the evil ways, for we have to continue to miss the mark, and so become desperate and hope to eradicate crime by executing the sinner, not the sin.
Thank you very much.
Later.
Since you are fighting for the non-practicability of the reinstatement of death penalty, allow me to ask you questions regarding the issues on constitutionality and feasibility.
Sure, go ahead.
Allow me to proceed with my questions on feasibility. Ms. Speaker, do you believe that death penalty is something Filipinos should be afraid of?
Let me correct your question, Ms. Speaker. This is not an argument between my belief and your belief. Can you please clarify your question? This is a debate,
Is
not a
death
belief
penalty
debate.
something Filipinos should be afraid of?
Afraid of what, Ms. Speaker?
Is death penalty something Filipinos should be afraid of?
If you're a law-abiding citizen, definitely not.
Okay, so why are you fighting for its non-practicability then?
If you have listened to my speech clearly, because it violates the international law, we have
Okay,
OFWs who are
I'm
facing...
satisfied with your answer.
I am not done with my answer, Ms. Intercalator, so if I may...
She may now proceed with her question if she's satisfied.
Okay.
You have made mention of international covenants and civil and political rights, correct?
Yes, exactly.
Are you aware that under Article 6 of the ICCPR, there are limitations on the banning of death penalty?
Yes, clearly, and the Philippines is no exception.
Okay, so on to my next question. Do you agree with me that death penalty only serves as the maximum punishment and not the only punishment for a heinous crime?
Well, it depends, Ms. Intercalator.
Do you agree with me that death penalty only serves as the maximum punishment?
Again, I repeat my answer, it depends, Ms. Intercalator.
Okay, so are you aware of the process of filing a case against an offender of a heinous crime?
Please enlighten me.
As you have stated a while ago, my purpose is to ask you questions and you are to answer.
Then if I'm not made aware, then I think it is your job to enlighten me.
So please enlighten her.
The speaker for the benefit.
Sorry. Have I not made myself clear that applauses and claps are only allowed after every speech? How difficult is that be? Do you want the instructions to be translated in the dialect? You may now proceed.
So you're saying?
So the prosecutor files the case, and in order to get a death penalty, all necessary elements of a heinous crime must be present. So, Ms. Speaker, back to my question. Do you agree with me that death penalty only serves as the maximum punishment?
Sorry, I think we're already in the part that you're supposed to enlighten her of the process.
Thank you, Mr. Interpellator. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Please enlighten her of the process.
Firstly, the prosecutor files a case, and if the prosecutor aims to get the maximum penalty, which is death penalty, all necessary elements of a heinous crime must be there in his filing of a case. So, Ms. Speaker, are you aware that even the smallest element lacking would cancel out the chance of getting death penalty?
Well, currently, right now, Ms. Interpellator, to be realistic with you, there's no death penalty currently imposed in the system, so definitely I cannot be able to answer your question at the present moment.
Thank you very much. You may now take your seat.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Alright.
Hello. A convivial afternoon to the Board of Judges, moderator, and to all Eugenians witnessing this momentous event. As the last speaker of the negative side, allow me to clarify and emphasize the evident reasons as to why the reenactment of death penalty is irrationally unnecessary, clearly not beneficial, and undeniably impracticable. On the eve of the possible renewal of executions in the Philippines after 10 years, it is clear that the concern surrounding the application of the death penalty in the past remains pressing today. These concerns include the risk of the judicial error, especially in the light of the continued reports of wrongful convictions in the past. In capital cases, reported a high judicial error rate of 71.77%. Also, evidences show that the death penalty continues to be applied in an arbitrary, inconsistent way, which falls disproportionately in poorer, disadvantaged sectors of the society. The safeguards necessary to ensure fair trial, which are especially important with the punishment, is irrevocable, and which include the right of the accused to have access to competent legal counsel at every stage of proceedings, are not being rigorously and consistently upheld. Claims that executions have a significant impact on reducing crime levels and enhancing the security of law-abiding citizens have been proved false in other countries and are said to be proved false in Philippines. There is no evidence that the death penalty acts as a greater deterrent to criminals than other forms of punishment, and that of reclusion perpetua to be specific. Having said all these contentions, please allow me to divulge the fallacies committed by the affirmative side that clearly makes our argument stronger. The first speaker mentioned that the need of the status quo is exclusive, when there is, in fact, an inclusive status quo, thus committing argument of omniscience. Another, the first speaker mentioned, by killing innocent victims promotes justice, thus bringing up the policy of argumentum ad ignorantiam, misleading argument used in the reliance of people's ignorance. Then, it was also cited that the upsurge of the heinous crimes is the basis of passing the death penalty, where in fact, there is no direct statistics claims that abolition of the death penalty increased heinous crimes and vice versa. Thus, the arguments running in circles, thus being guilty of the policy of circulus in probando. The second speaker, the second or the third speaker would use the argument of the President Duterte, therefore committing the argument of the policy of argumentum verecundium. An authority makes a claim does not necessarily mean that it is valid. Also, Vengeance is different from retribution. Punishment by way of killing is not a form of retribution. Instead, it is vengeance, providing a statement usually intended to deceive and omit some of the facts necessary for accurate description, committing the fallacy of half-truths. And lastly, for the second speaker, she asked questions beginning on how, ironically, she demanded for yes or no answers, thus making the fallacy of complex questions, demanding a direct answer that cannot be answered by yes or no only, without analyzing the basis of question itself. Pointing out, and lastly, for the third speaker, the Constitution doesn't prohibit passing of the death penalty, but to reiterate to you, the Philippines have signed international treaties with the content of prohibiting to pass death penalty as mentioned by our third speaker, creating the fallacy of observable selection, pointing out favorable circumstances while ignoring the unfavorable. The killing by the Philippine state of prisoners convicted of capital crimes will provide the solution to the challenge of criminality, which will continue to be fueled by a complex of factors, including poverty, social inequality, unemployment, and the weakening of the formal and informal methods of social control. As a whole, we refuse to be placed in the same category. If the goal of any punishment is to teach those things we should not do, then the justice system should more adequately teach the criminality of killing by refusing to partake in it, such that of capital punishment for it directly destroys the life of person, preventing him to make amends and to change his life. What needs to be done is to have a more purposive process of law enforcement that will in time guarantee safety and security for the population. In fact, modern society has a means of effectively suppressing crime by rendering criminals harmless without definitively denying them the chance to reform. What we need is reformation of the Philippines criminal justice system and better social security, not the reenactment of the death penalty, making it irrationally unnecessary, clearly not beneficial, and undeniably impracticable. Execute justice, not people.
Of heinous crimes keeps bolstering, but still remain unaddressed. We need to restore the once ultimate criminal penalty if the national good is at stake. Death penalty, therefore, should be reenacted in the country because it is undeniably necessary, beneficial in many ways, and practicable in its constitutionality and feasibility. To judge the course of this argument, greetings to our commendable judges, fair moderator, debaters delivering their fiery speeches, and to the spectators, good day. Both debating teams gave their speeches for today's proposition, resolved that death penalty be reenacted in the Philippines. We still say it should and must be reenacted. Our side has strongly set the parameters of our arguments, starting from the necessity, beneficiality, and practicability. But allow me once more to reiterate our claims, since the negative side has misconstrued today's proposition in our clear contentions. Let me start with the necessity. Death penalty is necessary as argued by our first speaker because of the alarming upsurge of heinous crimes, having 9,646 murder cases, 31,741 cases of robbery, and 10,298 rape cases in 2015. In a simple analysis, ladies and gentlemen, an average incidence of murder every 54 minutes, robbery every 60 minutes, and rape every 51 minutes. This alarming statistics proves that our current criminal penalties did not stop or even lessen these heinous crimes. As a result, our first speaker gave her second contention that such upsurge in heinous crimes make it a prominent need of the status quo that we need to address. Let me now proceed with the beneficiality. The reenactment of the death penalty is beneficial as opposed to the notions of the adversary of this proposition. Our second speaker educated us three grounds of the beneficiality of today's proposition. First, it is deterrence of heinous crimes. The negative side keeps on preaching that there is no deterrence on crime, when in fact it deters crime. Again, it was abolished in 1987. There was an increase of crime rate in Metro Manila by 100% and a killing of daily of 200 lives, 2 lives rather nationwide in 1990s. And today, the absence of the ultimate criminal penalty has paved away the most vile forms of heinous crimes. Second, it is a form of retributive justice, since it is the wrongness of the criminal act that justifies the imposition of death penalty of the offender. Lastly, this is a component of the government's program in solving heinous crimes, which is highly supported by President Duterte and the PNP chief, Bato de la Rosa. Let me conclude under the practicability. Our opponents kept on mentioning that there is a violation of human rights, Declaration of Human Rights, if in fact not. That is why our third speaker said that it is practicable because of the provisions of the Constitution, as far as the due process clause of the Bill of Rights is concerned, death penalty is allowed. Death penalty still considers due processes, unlike what the negative team is trying to insinuate. Second, this is supported by bills filed in lower and upper Congress, making it as a top priority of the 17th Congress. Lastly, it is a constitution that gives the Congress to reimpose death penalty under three contentions. First, the Congress will file the bill. Second, there is a compelling reason. And third, there is an upsurge of heinous crimes. These are our valid and strong contentions, which the negative side failed to have. As a matter of fact, they have committed fallacies and errors of reasoning and violations for the maxims of conversations of this debate. Let me now divulge their flaws contained in their arguments. Let me be straight to the point, as I take it one by one. The first speaker committed two fallacies, as he stated, killing the innocent. This is a policy of argumentum ad ignorantium and half-true. There is a due process in executing death penalty, as what our third speaker said making your statements wrong. They also stated that once a person is in suspicion of heinous crimes, they will be sentenced to death. This is a false analogy and an argumentum ad ignorantium, for again, there is a due process on it. They also failed to present the three grounds of implementing death penalty, which is an argument, a form of argumentum ad ignorantium. They also violated the maximum quantity when he only presented the percentage without citing a credible source about the data of the PNP upsurge of crimes. Now, let me proceed to the next speaker. The second speaker committed a false analogy when you concluded that death penalty is in correlation with brutality, when in fact it does not violate human rights, Bill of Rights, and international human rights. He also had complex questioning when the second speaker won't allow our beneficiality speaker to finish. Let me remind you that when you are asking questions, allow the speakers to complete the thought so you may be enlightened enough with the knowledge you do not possess. The third speaker of the negative side committed a fallacy of argumentum ad ignorantium when he stated that the country is exempted in the international human rights. Ladies and gentlemen, opponents of the reenactment of death penalty kept on insisting that it is inhuman, unconstitutional, and morally unacceptable. It is not inhuman, since human rights are not overlooked because of the due process of the law. It is not unconstitutional, since it does not contradict Bill of Rights. It is morally acceptable, since the state recognizes three forms of killing: war, self-defense, and death penalty. No further arguments, as a rest the case. Thank you.